Okay, I think we're back. My apologies, everyone. I think if we'll have quite a bit of time over the summer to rectify issues like this, but if OBS can't get some of these issues resolved, then we'll probably have to move to another format, a less public format, regrettably, but that's okay. So you've I don't think you got a chance to see Mario in action, so I'll go ahead and I'll run the footage and I will reiterate. Oh yeah, this is a video I uploaded, I guess, a while ago in 2018. Geez. Anyway, this is a Mario agent that is playing the game and trying to get as far as it can. I believe it eventually does beat the first stage and get partway through the second stage. However, maybe more interesting is the way that the game actually does this and gets better and better and better over time as you train more and more and more. So what happens is the game will take the environment that the agent is around and it will downsample it. It will simplify the representation into this grid that you see. So go ahead and look at this grid. What it's doing is it's actually taking the interesting objects like blocks, like pipes, like enemies in the environment, and they are putting the environment into this interesting little grid. If you look very closely at this grid, you can see that there are lines that are connecting into this box, into this downsampled representation of the world around Mario. Well, these lines connect to these nodes in the middle of this graph, and then these nodes in the middle of this graph connect on the right side to the, 6 inputs on the NES controller. I think there's also a pause and select button in here, but it doesn't affect the gameplay, so it isn't included on this right-hand side. What happens is, as these cells get filled by interesting objects, walls or enemies, they activate the little neurons, I guess, in the center of the graph, and those neurons can pass on the signal to an input on the controller. When a signal on the controller, when a signal successfully gets to this right side, these nodes are all associated with a button on the controller, and Mario does that action. So anyway, it's really, really interesting. What you'll also notice is that we have this neural net, but we also have a bunch of them. So as time goes on, every time Mario dies, a new neural net gets generated, and at the end of, I think, 10 or 20 attempts, it will take the best performing neural nets and it will use those as the genetic basis for generating the next generation of neural nets to try out. And over time, the agent gets a lot better, though I'm not sure if I trained it for long enough. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it in this video or not. Anyway, it's a really, really cool tool. You can download it and you can run this this training yourself and see how well it does. Okay? Ooh, that was impressive. Oh! Ooh, look at this one. Wow. Oh. You see, that's a problem. It was on a roll, and it was just on a roll and doing extremely well, and then it got to a point where it just kind of chillaxed and didn't know what to do. After a little while of being in that state of just sitting there, the game will say, okay, that's the end of this neural net. Let's go on to the next one. Okay? All right. Cool. So I believe that's all we want to go. Yes, Unity has its own machine learning package, which could be, it's interesting. In our EECS 499 research, game development research course, we usually have at least one student per semester doing machine learning agents in game dev. And yeah, it can work very well. The problem that developers often run into, though, is that currently machine learning and neural nets, there's something of a black box. It can be hard to figure out why a certain structure of neural net is resulting in a certain behavior in the agents. And it is also the kind of thing where if you want to experiment, it takes a long time. It can take, hours or days even to train an agent and then compare them to the previous agents and find out which one does better. In game design, you often want fine-grained controls over what enemies will do in certain situations, because a really good AI that's really good at defeating the player is not necessarily going to be one that is very engaging for the player. And the latter is really the point rather than the former. So anyway, machine learning, very intriguing, could have incredible potential for games, but as of yet, it hasn't been super impactful. I can't really think of a single game that has gotten a ton of mileage out of machine learning technologies. Okay, though maybe tools. Tools could definitely be there. All right, so let's go ahead and finish our lecture really quickly on efficient teams. If you recall, last time we kind of ended, we had gone over a bunch of the different leadership types that you can have. You can have the AI lead if your game has a bunch of artificial intelligence that's going to be really important to the game. You can have an aesthetics lead or two, people on your team who might be dedicated to the first impression, making sure that people see the game or hear the game and they immediately love it. It's distinct, it's easy to market and sell. That kind of stuff. We also talked about tools that you can use, right? From using your Google Calendar, setting up notifications so no one misses a meeting, using stuff like Doodle to figure out when everyone's available, Slack and Discord to instantly connect with others, okay? So you'll want to, when you're meeting your team, you'll want to set that kind of stuff up. A question, though, and it can be a little bit of a contentious one sometimes, is, okay, we know what kinds of leads our team should probably have, but how do we actually dole out and determine who's going to be what? The simplest, probably the simplest way is that if you have, one person who is clearly, the best choice for an aesthetic lead, you might say, and there's no one who really contests that. You don't have multiple people who want to be the aesthetic lead. Then you can just give it to that person, right? The team kind of agrees this would be a good idea, and if there's evidence to back that up, then yeah, your team should just dole out that role. If there's a little bit of question, right? You've got multiple people who want to be the AI lead, you've got multiple people who want to be the DevOps lead, and your team doesn't think you need multiple people for that leadership role, then what you can do is essentially a blind vote. Right. The idea is each member of the team would rank each member based on, how much do I believe they would be an effective choice for that role. You rank 1 to 4 or 1 to 5, whatever you want, and you write. You essentially place that onto a piece of paper, and you place it into a hat anonymously as you can. You rank yourself 4. You give yourself the highest number if you want that role. And then when everyone has dumped their stuff in, you just read out what the results are, and the winner is the one who gets that role. You probably want people to have a chance to kind of show off and make their case for that role. But remember, this is a competition, but it's one that, if carried out well, it should hopefully get the best result. Okay, even if you are denied by your team the role that you were looking for, it really, really dulls the pain to remember that you are on a team and you want to try and get the best person with the best role that fits them as possible. All right, that benefits you as well. So you can sum up the rank for each person and only reveal the winner. This process can help people get put into roles and help the team determine roles without with kind of minimal contention. Hopefully. I want to go over a couple things that can go wrong. Yeah, Google Forms can work pretty well. So yeah, it's fairly easy to take this online. Okay, so when it comes to teams, there are a bunch of things that can go wrong, and you probably can spot some of these. I want to bring them up, talk about them briefly, and then we can come to some solutions together. The first one, miscommunication, right? You've probably heard this one before. Miscommunication, lacking communication. Has this killed anyone's project before? I mean, what's interesting is miscommunication is kind of a root problem that causes so many different symptoms on your team that sometimes it can be hard to trace the problems of your team back to miscommunication in the heat of the moment. But another one is a power struggle. So how many of you in the chat have been on a team in which you essentially have people, like we just talked about, you have people who are kind of vying for the leadership position at the same time, or maybe they're vying for the same resources, the same role on the team, and you can feel a little bit of friction, a little bit of friction going on, right? Has anyone felt that friction by watching their teammates on a team or something? It is sometimes mildly amusing at first, but it tends to result in some bad problems, right? People stop talking to each other. People who should be best friends and teammates stop cooperating as efficiently as they should be. It's not a good situation. Freeloading. How many of you have felt the effects of freeloading? Hopefully not so much in this course, though certainly possible on P1. Jelly Kid Forever. Yep. Yeah. So it is almost, I feel, axiomatic that the students who come to Michigan at some point in high school or middle school were on a team where they were essentially asked to carry most of the weight. And when you are the one carrying most of the weight, you really, really start to feel the effects of freeloading. It builds an enormous amount of animosity, and it degrades the performance of the person carrying the weight and also the performance of the people who could be contributing a little bit more. So how do we get past that? We'll talk about that in a sec. Another thing you can run into is a control freak. This is one I'm a little bit guilty of. Control freak, micromanagement, failed delegator. I recall back in, one of my biggest regrets from running Wolverine Soft from 2011 to 2015 was that I really wasn't very good at delegating at that time, and it makes your entire life harder, right? While you can have more precision when you have one extremely strong lead that is just taking over the entire project, it really reduces the potential of your team. You just cannot move it as fast. You're suddenly bottlenecked by one person, right? And it's just not fun to be on these teams, right? To have every tiny situation and decision taken away from you. Poor talent usage, so asking people to do things that aren't really aligned with their skills and interest. And remote apathy, which is a particular concern during remote pandemic semesters, like what we find ourselves in right now. Okay, so the question I have is, how can we resolve some of these things? Joe Dodson says, at one point last semester, I was working on a project where myself and another guy were doing front end. They barely did anything, but the one thing he did was almost impossible to read and didn't fit with the rest of our app. Yeah, that's a huge problem, right? And they're actually, those two issues right there are linked. You've got someone who isn't really participating and contributing very much, not interfacing with the team very much, and not kind of contributing over time. As a result, this person has no idea about what the team's current standards are and how the team tends to do things. And so there's going to be this level of incompatibility whenever they submit their first thing. And until they've submitted a few things to your team, they're not really going to understand the standards. Often when a team kind of starts and gets rolling, there is a lot of pain up front because people are they're building their own software. They're making contributions with the biases that they have from their past and other teams they've worked on. And it can take a while to make all of your efforts compatible with that of your teammates. But it's really, really important that we do that, okay? Anyway, that's another one of those things. It's a little bit of pain up front, but eventually it goes away and you're much more efficient. So questions, how do you deal with some of these nasty issues? Many of you are meeting with your teams like today for the first time. And so the question is, when communication starts to fall apart, right? When people start to go silent, when it's hard to get a hold of people, when it comes down to someone maybe wanting to make their dream game and you're going to help them do it, right? How do you deal with all of this? How do you deal with a person who decides that they're just going to kind of hide a little bit in the corner and let you do all of the heavy lifting? How are you going to address this stuff as a team? Any ideas, chat? These are hard challenges. Let's go ahead and go through a few solutions that we have found that worked pretty well in the past. This first one, this is a terrible answer. I should probably remove it. But when it comes to miscommunication, getting the wrong information, making incorrect assumptions about where the project is going, what we should do, you really just need to communicate more. That's a really unsatisfying answer, so let us improve it a bit. You need to communicate more, but you also want to think about how you communicate, when you communicate. Is there a consistent schedule? Have you set up the tools that give everyone reminders, the Google Calendar with the notifications, email and SMS? Do you have extremely easy ways to communicate with your team? Not just email, but with Slack and Discord and WeChat. Do you have a kind of a set schedule to make sure that this kind of becomes a habit for everyone? If you need to communicate with someone ASAP because the due date, your deliverable is due in 60 minutes, and the code that we just merged is causing our project to fail, do you have the ability to call them and say, hey, get up, get out of bed, we need you right now? Do you have the ability to do that? Okay. So you can take your communication to the next level by doing all of these things and talking about your communication when you do meet. Okay. When it comes to power struggles, it really helps for your team to remember that this has to be about about we, okay, instead of I and my. If any of you have the idea that you're going to make your dream game during this project, then you really want to put those aspirations to bed, okay? You will have a big impact on your game's design and direction. However, even if you are the design lead on your team, right, you are not going to be able to control the direction of this game entirely. You will need to rely on the kind of consent of your team to go and make certain decisions, and the kind of features, the kind of flavor that gets into your project will come from the combination of your teammates. So, in other words, this project 3 is not going to be, this right? Remember, no gods, right? This is not going to be one person's vision. It's going to be one person's vision combined and mixed in and iterated and removed and added and modified with all of your other team's dreams as well. Okay? So anyway, one way to avoid power struggle, talk with your teammates about how this really is not going to be anyone's dream game. And remember that we're humans, we live for a pretty long time generally, and we will have time to make future games. If you want to make games in the future, you will have plenty of them made after this class, okay? This is not the be-all, end-all. This is not the apex of your game dev career. Okay, this is simply another tiny step along that path. All right. Okay, so let's keep going. Freeloading. One of the most effective ways to deal with freeloading in this course is to be active, all of you, with your project management. So make sure that you're logging your time on Jira. Make sure that you are moving your tasks to the right slot. Make sure you are assigning tasks to people every single week. Because when the P3 ends, the staff is going to go through your Jira, and if someone has been contributing substantially less than the average of their teammates, we're going to take away 50% of their entire project points. Okay? So remind them of this policy. You don't have to be bitter or angry or mean about it. But if someone is not contributing very much, then it would be good of you to remind them that they could be putting themselves into way more jeopardy than they realize, okay? This is a required course for many people, getting their MD, their capstone out of the way in order to graduate. So it is no joke that people who don't find the time to contribute, that freeload and do so without a really a good reason for doing so, might not pass this course. Okay. So anyway, don't be afraid to remind your teammates of this course's policies. It can help you a lot when it comes to lighting a fire under certain team members. Okay. If you get a control freak, a micromanager, a failed delegator, someone who's really seems to be taking control of the project and neglecting teammates and not coming to them for advice and not getting their consent to make big changes, you need to remember that this really is a group assignment, and you can easily outvote someone who tends to be doing that. If you outvote someone and you're still having issues with that person, come to the core staff. We are going to side with most of your team, okay? So keep that in mind, all right? And remind whoever is maybe going a little bit power crazy that this is not this is not a Kojima situation, and it's certainly not going to end positively if they keep doing that, all right? Poor talent usage, specialization. We talked a lot about this in the early part of this lecture. I really wish I had way more images and stories and cool videos to show you. This is why this lecture stinks, but I appreciate your patience. Specialization. You want to do the best you can to get your people working on things that they're really interested in. And if they have knowledge in that area, that's good too. But the cool thing about interest and excitement is that it generates knowledge really fast. If you can find someone who really they've thought about wonderful aesthetics their entire life and they really like it and they have an eye for it, putting them into that role, even if they don't know a whole lot about shaders, there's a very good chance that they will very quickly learn and start producing some really cool stuff, okay? This final remote apathy issue is kind of interesting this semester because everyone is remote. You can't meet in person. You just can't do it, really. So how do you feel like part of a team without being able to actually interact with or see your team in person? Well, just because you can't meet your teammates, your friends in person, doesn't mean they aren't there. And so it really helps every single day to remind your teammates that, hey, you're there, they are there, they're doing cool stuff, you're doing cool stuff. That really, really boosts morale. What you'll find, if you didn't find it on Project 1 already, what you'll find is that when someone posts cool stuff that they've added to your project, let's say you're working on a new feature and your teammates are working on new features, and suddenly, boom, in your Discord chat, you see a beautiful new screenshot of an enemy animating with cool uppercuts and dynamic camera angles coming in as an intro or something. That is going to get you hyped up, right? That's going to get you hyped up. It's going to make you feel that this project is something worth investing in because other people are doing so. And this becomes a really nice positive feedback loop that keeps the team's morale high. So with your team, make sure that you have a central place to put previews, to put fun images, just anything to help update your teammates on the cool stuff that you're doing, to give them a little bit of energy. That can help a lot. Repeated meetings, right? We're always going to meet every Tuesday from this time to this time, and Thursday and Saturday. That helps a lot too, right? Because you are consistently meeting with people, you're interacting with them. I think it's very helpful if you use webcams. Like, I have a question actually. Many of you use Discord to call each other, and Slack and WeChat to call each other and interact, I'm guessing. And almost all of you use the texting functionalities of these services as well. But how many of you actually, when you do the web call, you use your webcam? You actually show yourself to your teammates. Do any of you do that? Is that popular? Or do people normally avoid that? Yeah, so Jolly Kid says they do. Okay, so my impression is that I literally look like Jabba the Hutt. So no, don't be mean to yourself. Haha, no, not really webcam. So as I kind of expected, it's very, very common for people to not really want to use their webcam, right? Hey, we'll just text. I'll text the message. Hey, I'll use a voice, okay? But I would like you to consider that seeing a real human, right, in a real location with real thoughts and feelings and concerns and talents and interests, not just hearing a voice, is something that can be very, very powerful for your feeling of connectedness. Even if it can be a little bit, a little bit scary sometimes. And maybe you can't always do it for other reasons. But I would encourage you to experiment with trying to do more video calls, okay? When you're communicating, at least at the start, maybe throw on the webcam, and then as time goes on, you start working on your own things and hanging out, you can turn off webcam, save some bandwidth and performance maybe. But every once in a while, remind your teammates that you are a human, they are humans, and even though you're not there in the same room, you are together. You are on this team. Okay, that can help a lot. Make things just feel a little bit more real. Okay, so this is something that isn't really a huge topic. It is interesting, but it's not important for this course. We're going to briefly go through it before our break, though, because it is very interesting. Presentation is a really, really impactful skill, and not just on the topic of game dev or courses or anything like that. When you're part of a team and you're presenting, you need to be working together, essentially. And you can see some of it in this image right here. You have one person who's presenting, okay? And if you're on a team, you really want the audience's attention to be focused on the person who's presenting. If the audience's attention is anywhere else, then your message, your team's message, is not getting across. And that's a negative for your team. One of the interesting things that you discover is that people are really, really, really kind of, I guess they're biologically programmed to be attentive to faces. So when a human sees another human's face, they will just tend to look at it. It is something that imparts a lot of information. It is something that is important. People can use it to judge the intention of a human, right? A friend or foe. Is this person trying to teach me? Is this person trying to scare me? Is this, stuff like that. What you look at this image here, you see one person who's presenting information. You see two teammates who are helping that person out. Because if you look at this person or this person's face, they are looking at something. Your attention will be redirected to wherever they are looking, which happens to be the person on their team who's presenting. If you look at this person right here, I'm guessing some of you have already noticed this person in their face, and you probably have started wondering, if only for a brief moment, what this person is thinking about. What are they looking at, right? Are they thinking about what kind of pizza they're going to order after this presentation? Are they thinking about the weekly lotto? Are they thinking about something else, right? Are they nervous? And when you are asking those questions to yourself after seeing this person's face, you're not paying attention to what the group is trying to do. Okay? So here's an example of it going pretty well, right? You have a presentation going on with three people, and when you look at these two over here, if you happen to glance at these two first, there's very little for you to do here, okay? Your attention will immediately be shifted to what are they looking at? Oh, they're looking at their teammate who is presenting and much more interesting. In other words, they are redirecting everyone's attention to the actual presenter. And when the actual presenter changes to one of these other people, hopefully the person who used to be talking will now be focusing attention on the other person, okay? It's really, really interesting. You start to notice this stuff as you watch more presentations. This is an example of it not going very well. By far, the most interesting part of this image is not the presenter, but the person who is not presenting, right? Because her expression is not only funny, she's looking off to the side of the camera, and you can only help but wonder what she's staring at or thinking about. She's got a little bit of a smile going on, which makes it even more funny. So you don't want to kind of avoid this because when you're looking and wondering about one member of the team who's not presenting, then you're not getting the information that you want. Now, this is something that happens in student presentations, but this is also something that happens on the professional level too. Do any of you like football? This is the Michigan versus Notre Dame night game that happened not too long ago. And what you'll notice is, first of all, you've got Brent Musburger and Kirk Herbstreit, two professional kind of interviewers, two professional media people, and they are interviewing Eminem. They're interviewing, I believe, Marshall Mathers, and Brent Musburger, the two professionals here, right? They know how to redirect attention to the person who's talking and what to do. You'll notice that Eminem has a different approach to this particular interview. Let's go ahead and take a look, okay? Uh-oh. I need to turn the volume up here. Uh-oh. Come on. Up. All right. Come on, Google. I need a stronger laptop. Okay. Let's see here. Refresh the page. Maybe Google will wake up for us. Interesting. Okay. Oh, I think it's going now. Maybe? Okay, I guess it's back. Hopefully we have audio now. Yep.
To introduce Marshall Mathers. Some of you may know him as Eminem, but he's going to join the Saturday night crew with our music intro starting next Saturday night. But folks, I want to take you to the world premiere of one of his new videos called Berserk. Take a listen. It's headed for the top of the charts. Rick Rubin, who was helping produce that with you, Marshall, when you did that?
Yeah, sorry. Live TV. Live TV freaks me out a little bit. No. Yes, I'm sorry. What was the question?
Okay, so it's just a short clip, but what's interesting is that you can see Kirk kind of reacting to what Marshall Mathers is doing. If you look back here, oh gosh. If you look back here, you can actually notice that Kirk first starts focusing his attention on Brent Musburger to make sure the viewer pays attention to him and what he's saying. But he notices that Eminem is destroying this entire shot right here. And in order to make it less awkward, he starts smiling and laughing. He turns to the camera briefly, shows a big smile and laugh. He makes it less awkward by doing that, and then refocuses on Brent to try and do what he can to save that interview. Anyway, yeah, Eminem knows what he's doing as well. He's deliberately crushing this interview, and not crushing it in a good way, but destroying it. Crushing it and destroying it. So anyway, all right. The last thing I have to show you is this kind of funny little clip, and then we will go ahead and take a break, and then we'll come back with some cool shader programming talk and information. Okay? Slim Shady, 10 years ago. Dang, first night game in history here. Yeah, you're right. It was 2011, 2012. I know this because that was my first year at Michigan. Okay, so let's go ahead and watch. This is a famous presentation. It's a very brief clip called "The Silent Hill Stare." A situation where, well, I'm sure he didn't mean to direct attention in such an ominous way, but he does. I think it's more his expression and how close he is in this camera shot. Oh no, what? What happened? I can't get to YouTube. Oh gosh, we're just having all sorts of issues today, aren't we? Okay, I've lost my ability to connect to websites, but I've not lost my ability to stream. So we might need to take that break now, because this will occasionally happen. I'm not sure why it happens. Okay, I'm gonna need to restart my computer. Anyway, let me go ahead and ooh, can someone type this into chat real quick? You can all watch it and have a good time. YouTube DNHXB 7HBIGQT equals 53. Okay. So is that gonna work? Let's give it a shot. Can someone verify if that works? No? Yeah. Yep. Oh, it looks fine. Okay. All right. So go ahead and watch some of that if you want to. It is a little bit strange video. It can be very funny, but I only really want you to watch this clip where the Konami guy behind his shoulder is talking. Okay. Okay. I'm going to take we're going to take our 5-minute break now. I'm going to try and reboot my computer so that I can actually get to another website. And we will see you then for some shader programming. Okay? See you then.